Welcome everybody. Good evening everyone. Welcome back to TCR Trinity Competitive Racing.
Well, TCR TJ is the Season 13 Golden Class Champion for Trinity Competitive Racing.
Oh, let's go, dude! Yes!
Jabbar on the podium! He's on it by a 10! Gentlemen, side by side through one. And Silent, and Seafreeze gets a half spin.
Let's fucking go!
Wheel bumping.
DRS enable, let's do it.
And Captain Blade battling it out for position. Captain Blade.
Ickle, what the?
Then McChicken goes around and he also makes
Rewind down the front straight. Oh my god.
I gotta check the heart rate.
Why do we do this? Because of nights like this.
Welcome everybody to TCR Trinity Competitive Racing, and welcome to episode number 30 for the Racing and Debrief TCR's podcast, where we combine the world of e-racing, sim racing, and TCR with real-life motorsports and Formula One. A true racing enthusiast listen. I'm your host, Seafreeze, alongside co-host Camden Luca, and we got former producer D'Angelo, because now I'm doing all this shit. And we got Silent, a platinum class driver, actually two with D'Angelo, on the episode. So welcome everybody. We're going to be talking about round two and a couple topics. So if this is your first time listening, welcome. Yeah, check the details in the description for more information. And we're round 3 this week for Abu Dhabi, so you could tune in for that. We have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for each respective class at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time. So give us a quality watch this week, and give us a good tryout. Other than that, how we doing, guys?
Good. I'm glad to be here, per usual. D'Angelo, Silent. Good to have you guys here. That way I'm not here alone with Seafreeze for once. Yeah, this will be a fun conversation.
It wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I figured I could keep you company at least once.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. Luckily, I'm back in college now, so I'll be able to have more time for this shit, but yeah. Should be good. I'll be back in the driver's seat this week as well. Just got done with move-in last week and everything, so we should be good for the foreseeable future.
Good, and we'll be commentating hopefully tomorrow, both of us, the silver class, once again. That's tomorrow.
Indeed.
So, we're looking forward to that, round 3, Abu Dhabi. We're going to talk about, last week, I wanted to start with, actually, Platinum class for a change. I know Camden was commentating it, but I thought that finish to the race was really good, and I think you're going to see, I mean, we've seen a lot of good finishes from Platinum in, I guess, the last season and a half, but already 2 races in, we've saw some really good race endings, and specifically, we got a first taste between bthommm, which is a 4-time champion, defending champion, or I guess current champion, won the last 3 of 4 championships, and it was the first time we saw him and a new debut driver of Bama, who I knew a lot of before him racing here in his first race in TCR. I kind of had a little bit of a track record on him, so I knew he was going to be quick. He didn't have to do time trials or evaluations. I said, no, we're good. He got the word of mouth through Silent. Bringing him in here, and I thought he had a good race, and that was the first time we had bthommm and Bama go at it, and it was very respectful and fair and a great finish. So I just wanted to kind of start with them, because I thought it was a really good finish, a good respect between them, and I think we're going to see that a lot of races in Platinum come down to the final lap.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing I did notice, though, from last season to this season, is that last season there was a lot of last lap finishes and battles, but there was a little bit of controversy. And bthommm tended to be in that controversy a lot of the time, you know, whether there was contact or running somebody off the road. But you mentioned it. It was really clean, respectful racing. And Bama, it was actually his first ever start. So it was the first time since, well, last season, since we had somebody win in their first platinum start. And I said this on the broadcast, but I think it's just going to get better week by week in the platinum class.
Yeah, it was his first debut winner, and it was first since last season of Lawrence. And since then, I don't remember who might have done it before then. I'd have to really think about that one, but hey, that's a podcast question for everybody. Who was the last platinum debut driver, or debut TCR driver in all to win in platinum in their first TCR start in platinum? I don't know. I'd have to really look back at that one. But yeah, you had the usual suspects up there as well. Silent, you were there. Where did you finish? 4th?
Yeah, I think I was 4th. I just completely fell off at the end.
Now you were with them, but I gotta open the stream up here because we're recording on the 14th here on a Monday, so sometimes I forget a little bit of the race. I don't know if Camden knows any. Let me see. I'll open this stuff up here. Is Chargers? We did have some incident reviews as well. We had one with Forzan and bthommm. And Forzan, this is probably the first time, in my opinion, and I don't think it's opinion really, I think it's kind of fact, that we saw 2 races back to back by Forzan who had some really good speed and race winning potential, like almost through the entirety of the race. I don't think I've ever seen 2 back to back races from him. He always could win a race, but it's always depending. But I felt like it was strong, even though he still didn't get the result he needed with an incident with him and bthommm. Ultimately, it was a racing incident from the stewards, and I gave him my opinions before. I think we did some 5-lappers the other day, and I think you actually joined the party, Silent, and I was saying the same thing. I think it was a racing incident, and it went that way. So hard for him to lose, an opportunity at a podium, but I don't think it was any penalties were warranted in the moment, because when you're racing, it's kind of hard when you're kind of a middle driver, and that's kind of what bthommm was. And I'm not saying it was any bthomm's fault. I agree, it was no one's real fault. It was just a situation. When you have a driver trying to defend and then also attack, they have to think about both things, and I think it was just a slight misjudgment, just a gap that closed basically, and it was a racing incident, and that's what took Forzan out from a podium. He was finished 5th. So I see here you're 4th by about 2 seconds off. So yeah, pretty good race though.
Yeah, not too bad overall. I want to circle back a little bit on the bthommm and the Forzan stuff though.
Yeah.
I mean, me personally, I can see how the stewards came to the decision of being NFA, because I think you might feel bad or something, but some drivers might not be able to take everything into account. And I mean, if I'm in the situation, I'm sort of taking into account also the car behind, because at the end of the day, they're involved in the battle too, right? But I mean, I can see them giving some grace to bthommm as well, because you're in such a tough situation. So
yeah, I think it was difficult. The reason why I don't blame bthommm is because I think, according to our rules, I don't think he broke anything whilst defending, because he was initially defending from Bama, who was trying to overtake him, and Bama succeeded in that. and bthommm was kind of alleged was getting submitted for moving under braking. Now, our rules state that a car can move in the braking zone as long as your wheel doesn't turn. So you can diagonally brake in the braking zone as long as your steering wheel is straight, which bthomm's was. So he, while his car moved under braking, he didn't move under braking according to our rules and what is generally considered in racing. Moving under braking is what I kind of reference. This is back to Mexico 2016 in F1 between Vettel and Ricciardo towards the ending laps of that Grand Prix towards turn 4. And when you see Vettel, he initially broke and then he saw Ricciardo dive bombing into the corner in the inside, and he turned his wheel and then moved towards the left to cover him off. That is moving under braking. You can't initially brake and then start turning your wheel again and braking more. That's moving under braking. So bthomm's wheel stayed straight the whole time. Forzan, I didn't think he had a wing or anything next to him. He was always behind, and bthomm was just following what Bama was doing, because Bama overtook him, and Bama was going back towards the racing line, which he's allowed to do as long as he gives a car's width, which he did, and bthomm was just kind of following that incident. So I think because Forzan was kind of alone, his braking performance in that corner was a lot stronger, meaning he closed up and the gap closed, because bthomm was kind of he was settling with Bama side by side, or somewhat side by side through the corner. So I think bthomm's braking performance in turn 1 isn't maximized if Bama wasn't there. You know, if it's a clean lap alone, he's braking deeper and heavier into the corner. So I think a gap just closed, and it's obviously not Forzan's fault, because bthomm wasn't really hurt from that incident, and bthomm wasn't the one submitting. I think Forzan did. Surprising. Surprising. bthomm. Oh, he did actually submit some people. We'll get to that as well. He did submit somebody. So I think it was just a gap that closed, in my opinion. I don't think anything was deemed to be a penalty, but it is just so tough when you're in a train and you have to worry about overtaking, defending at the same time. Then there's also that penalty, or the incident that bthomm did submit, and he submitted Odoms, or the Confessor. Odoms in the Discord and the Confessor on the streams. That's what he runs under. For DNFing, intentionally wrecking their car on track, and he got a pretty hefty penalty. I think because he received a race ban for this, and 2 penalty points. Now I don't know if this was because he had an accumulation of penalty points, or they just gave him a race ban. I'm trying to read here.
I think it was escalated based on the fact that the stewards can tell he doesn't really care and he's a repeat offender. I think was a judgment based on their own assertion. Not because he earned it so quickly. But,
yeah.
I mean, he did.
So yeah, race ban. So which is unfortunate, because I can understand from his point of view where, it might, it did cause a VSC. And a driver did get a drive-through penalty on it. Now, it's not Confessor's fault that somebody sped under the VSC, but it still put that driver in that situation where if he just went in the pits correctly, that driver didn't have to do a VSC, and he wouldn't have gotten a drive-through penalty. And if a full safety car came out, that would have changed the race a lot. So just because he either had a frustrating day, or I don't even know where he was in that situation to retire, but he was going into the pits. He hit the wall and his car slid into the pit lane, and that's what caused the VSC. But that's just not what we need. I mean, I think it's kind of, yes, it's a game, it's this, it's that, but a lot of people practice, a lot of people put a lot of time into, league racing and making it competitive, the streams, and it's not a good look, and it's kind of disrespectful to all the drivers and just everybody involved to just intentionally wreck and crash on track and cause safety cars or VSC in this instance, and to not submit any footage when required, which is a league, every league. When you're asked to require footage, you require and you submit it, and regardless of the submission. So, I wish there was a little bit more, working with us, so to speak. But yeah, it's unfortunate because I kind of picked him this season to be one of the championship favorites, and he didn't have the best opening 2 rounds. Now he's got a race ban, and I don't know. I hope he continues to show up and race. I don't know if the motivation will still be there. I'm not too sure, but I hope he does.
Yeah, I also had him up there as a solid top 5 choice for Platinum, but I think he started off pretty well in Qatar, but I think after he got some penalty or drive-through or whatever happened at Qatar, he just completely spiraled out of order. So maybe I think once that happened, it fell to the wayside. But leading up to Qatar and driving the first stint with him, he was fine. So I think it's just kind of, he didn't get over, I think, the situation in Qatar, and then it completely spiraled out in Bahrain. But who really knows?
Yeah. Well, I hope he gets back on track and gets back when he's able to race, which would be technically round 4, because he wouldn't be able to race this week, and round 4 is the Netherlands, which is the 3-tire special. So maybe he can turn it around that time by. Just a couple quick notes from me. I don't know if anyone else has any for Platinum, but I thought Just Jose, or Ravioli as we can now call him, please change the EA name. Please change it. Please change it. We don't need Ravioli. You know why? Because I think he did change it. I think Sir Charles was saying, I don't know if Sir Charles knew who he was, and that it was Just Jose and not a new driver, because it confuses some of the commentators or viewers and other drivers too, because you'll be racing them all along and people think it's a new driver, and then it's like, oh, it's not Ravioli, it's Just Jose. Yeah, we know Just Jose.
And it's not even Ravioli, it's just we couldn't pronounce his actual username, so we just started to call him Ravioli. So if you are going to change your name, at least change it to something that we can pronounce.
Yeah.
Or just change it to Chef Boyardee.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so I hope he brings it back. But they had a nice battle, TJ and Just Jose. I thought Fireflow and Chargers had a good battle all throughout as well. And yeah, like I said, Forzan had some good speed. Unfortunate situation, but I think he'll bounce back for next week. And for Abu Dhabi, I think he'll be just as quick. But yeah, good finish again, and I think Bama, after missing the first round, I think he's if he continues to show, I think he'll be a nice threat to the championship, keeping everybody on it. But it was cool to see a nice race. So good job, Platinum class. And there was a lot of discussion in the Discord today, and about different ideas and I guess topics and such, and I wrote some of them down to try and translate them to the podcast, so we can kind of talk about them a little bit. And I think we'll start with the one that's third in line, which is an idea of getting a penalty point if you DNF in the pits, assuming you have no car damage, because to piggyback off of the Confessor retiring on track or in the pit lane, I think we see this a lot nowadays. People's races kind of get ruined early on. Driver gets frustrated, they come into the pits, they hit the retire button. Their car does come out on track, and that should have been fixed 5 games ago. But it's kind of just a lack of interest by the drivers. Now, if you have damage to your car, personally, I would tough it out and go and finish the race. But if you do have damage to your rear wing or side pod and it's undrivable and you can't drive it around, then I think it's justifiable to DNF. But personally, I never like to see drivers DNF, because we saw it actually last week at Silver. There was Bulldog Bazaar retired, and then we had a safety car, right? And he could have easily gotten points because F1 Nerd got a podium.
Yep.
So I personally don't like people retiring in the pits just for no reason, because dinner's ready, or they just got some ice cream, or
not the ice cream.
The ice cream's melting, I gotta go. But I don't know. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think a lot of people would get penalties, but I think at the end of the day, people are going to do it regardless, even if it is a penalty point. But in my opinion, you finish the race regardless. You just finish the race. But I don't know if it should be a penalty or not.
I feel like saying or trying to hand out a penalty is a bit much for that. I mean, I can understand what Confessor did, crashing out, but if you're, let's say you have like rear wing damage, or not even rear wing damage, but like your whole race is lost, right? And let's say you're like 7 laps from the end. Not everybody is going to want to wait and hope for a safety car. They're just going to stop wasting their time and retire. You can't help, people that might have that mentality, so one penalty point is a small price to pay for them. But anyway, yeah, I feel like if we're going to penalize people for hitting retire from session in the pit lane, and then, you have other people that come into our races or reserve for some races, and they completely trash the race. They disturb the race, or they crash into other people, and they're reserving. What are you going to do about those people? We have people ruining each other's races all the time. So I feel like a DNF for retiring in pits is just kind of nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I think somewhere in our rules there is something that if it's like a reoccurrence, we could just say, all right, just stop showing up. Because I'm not going to throw names out, but I think we know what golden drivers reserve in platinum and retire in the pits every single race. And that was a lot of last season. But I don't know why you would show up.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's 2 of them. It comes as a pair.
Yeah, we all know.
And I'm not throwing them out there. It's just, I appreciate them showing up and reserving. That's good. But just because an incident happens, or you spin, or get damaged, or you're off the pace, or whatever the issue is, we want to see them finishing races, because it's just, I don't know, we want golden drivers to reserve in platinum, we want silver drivers to reserve in golden, because that's how you improve when you race drivers ahead of you in skill, and you can try and improve your racecraft and get quicker. But we want you to have a fair shot at it and not retire after 5 laps in the pit lane. So if it happens week on week on week on week, then we could just say, all right, you're not showing up anymore. And I think we didn't do it last season because of the game and the attendance and how league race and community was on that poor game. But if it happens on a season where there is great attendance, on a great game, possibly this one and this season, we would say, all right, don't attend, because showing up to just retire in 5 laps is just, it's like, no, we don't need that. So it is in the rules technically. It could be a penalty eventually. It would just be, don't show up anymore. But if we wanted to go ultra strict, which I think me and Bats are kind of like, we have a lot in common in that regard. We don't really give a, I would give race bans or back of the grids for if you retire in the pits. But I guess that's not the best route for some people. Anywho, Any more opinions on the DNFs in the pits?
Yeah, I think I agree with what you guys said. I don't think a race ban is necessary for that, though. I mean, it's not the most egregious thing that you can do, but yeah, you shouldn't just show up just to retire in the pits and possibly affect the outcome of the race. So, you know what? If there's a scenario where you can't make the whole race, say that dinner is ready or that ice cream cone is melting and you need to go attend to it ASAP, then don't show up and race.
Yeah.
Go eat your melting ice cream cone instead of racing TCR.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Because a lot of people have asked me, oh, they can attend, but they know they have to leave at a certain time. Should I race? I said, no. If you know you can't finish the race, like 100%, or even a real good chance, don't attend. Because why would you show up to a race that you know you're not going to finish? Doesn't make sense. So I usually
agree.
say don't attend. But go ahead, D'Angelo. What were you saying?
Yeah, I basically agree with all three. I think there should be something, especially if it's like one after the other. I think there should be a penalty. But I'm with Camden. It probably shouldn't be a race ban because I don't really have a reason for why it shouldn't be a race ban. But I feel like kind of on the same thing. It's like just DNFing in the pits isn't crazy, but I think maybe definitely not second time penalties, because that just wouldn't make sense, but definitely some penalty points added to their TCR super license.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened a lot. I mean, it's just kind of along with it, but I don't know. I always say you finish it, the race, no matter what. I mean, if you want to go to at least towards the last few laps where you know a safety car physically can't come out, then you could retire them. But then it really doesn't count as a DNF. You get the 90% rule, and you actually get a finish position. So, you don't want a DNF. Plus, it'll hurt your record, You know how many DNFs some of these guys have? Just retire in every race they show up? I guess they want to be the best in DNFs, because they inflate the stats so much. Anywho, I digress. Another talking point was today. I heard some people, and I kind of got involved today, as I had some time to thumb war with some people, was the ghosting and what it should be, on or off. Now, we always used to run ghosting off, so you would have to avoid a car if they spun or was blocking the track. Then there was that was seasons ago, and then eventually we turned it on for street courses. So I think in the rules, Singapore, Baku, Monaco. What's the other one? Singapore, Baku, Monaco. What's the other true one?
Isn't Australia technically a street course?
It is, but I think it's mainly an autodrome now, though.
I classify that one as like a park track. It's like an
autodrome street circuit, basically.
Like Canada's more of a park track than a street circuit, in my opinion. What's the other one? What's the other street courses we have?
You said, which ones have you said?
Singapore, Baku, Monaco. There's one more. There's just like 4 of them.
Vegas is a new one.
No, it's not Vegas. It's not Jeddah. It's Jesus Christ. What's the last one?
Are you sure there is a last one? Have we hit all of them?
Miami.
No. We got Lincoln. What's the last one? There's like, you go to Monaco, you go to Singapore, Baku. Oh, you guys are
Baku,
useless.
Monaco, Singapore, Las Vegas. I don't know. I think you're going crazy, Steve Freeze.
No, there's got to be one more.
I don't know. Let me do a quick Google search.
It's Saudi Arabia. Oh, okay, it was Saudi Arabia. I thought there was another one. So there was 4 in the rulebook, but I didn't think it was Jeddah, but it was Jeddah. And whatever the new ones would have been. So sorry. I thought there was like another like true one. Anywho, I guess it was Saudi Arabia. So that's what it was. Monaco, Singapore, Baku, and Jeddah were the ones that were ghosting on. But then with crossplay, we had turned it on for every track due to some of the, I guess, desync or connectivity issues possibly from last game. And any lag that we thought of, we said I think ghosting on would have been a good idea for all tracks. And coming into this season, when I was doing the settings for the lobby, I forgot that the ghosting was supposed to be on for all tracks. So I think we ran the first two with ghosting off, because I think a few drivers had some incidents. I think Main Wayne actually in Platinum got hit by Flip Flop Fish, who flopped in the first round, in the first like lap. It was literally so early on.
Washed up.
Jokes.
Yeah.
Damn.
But I think if the ghosting was on, Main Wayne would have continued. So, anywho, we have it now, round 3 and forward. It'll be on for every track. And I think there's benefits to having it on, and that's why we run it on in TCRs, because you know, a lot of people put in a lot of time and they don't want their races ruined by people who didn't practice, which I understand. So instead of drivers just quitting because they had a bad race and they got taken out, you know, in this frustration and, you know, a lot of DNFs and carnage, we would have it on. So there are some benefits to having it on. I think you also get better, you know, racing as opposed to wrecking. So in some scenarios it is okay, and we run it on mainly because of that, is to protect all the other drivers' practice time and preparation, and making sure that people don't leave the league just because of something that wasn't their fault. But I'll tell you right now, if it was all up to me and only me, ghosting would be off 100%. And I don't know where you guys stand, and I'm really curious, because a lot of platinum class drivers today in the Discord was defending ghosting should be on. And I absolutely disagree. And I don't see an argument as to why you would want it on, other than, you know, defending your practice and defending your time and commitment. But again, is it frustrating getting taken out if ghosting's off and you get involved into an incident because someone else spun in front of you or whatever have you, and you get damage or DNF? Yeah, it's frustrating, but I don't think that's, in my opinion, racing. That's what the sport is. I mean, you look at iRacing, you look at real life racing, they don't have ghosting. If a car wrecks in front of you or someone wrecks behind them, which happens. I mean, you look at Bottas at Hungary, he took out the whole field. You look at Grosjean or Maldonado, whoever it was, at Belgium Spa that one year, he took everybody out. I mean, you know, things happen. There's, you know, Perez blocked the track at Monaco in qualifying. Sainz hit him. If ghosting was on, he'd go through him. So, I mean, I don't really see, like, even incidents in real life happen like that, where people will spin in front of you and you hit each other, and you have some drivers who make idiotic moves, and that happens in real life in a lot of different race forms as well. But they don't have ghosting, obviously. iRacing, which is more professional, I guess, well, not really professional. I mean, there's some dumbos on there too, but I guess it's more accepted on the community. Obviously, it is off. So for an organized, competitive, clean racing league, I feel like, personally, it should also be off. If someone spins in front of you or blocks the track. Now, street courses could be a little different, and that's why I give a little sympathy to. But for other tracks, if someone spins in front of you or what have you, you know, you should be able to avoid the incident or 9, then you get it crashed, and that's a part of it. That's racing. There's also yellow flags for a reason, which a lot of people will go into blind corners with the yellow flags, and they'll just go flat out and not know that there's a wreck in front of them. But the flags are there for a reason, and I think with all the knowledge of racecraft and avoidance and reaction time, that is a part of racing, is to avoid the other drivers on track. So if you take that out and ghosting is on, and you see a driver spin and you don't have to react, you just go right through them, I think it takes a big element out of racecraft and race knowledge and reaction times that some of the drivers who do have those traits are kind of losing out on if ghosting's on. Now there is a grieving mode which we have on, so if you try intentionally take somebody out, you'll get ghosted on. But for the regular spins and such, that it would be ghosting off. And if it was up to me, ghosting would be off for every race at every track. But that's not fully up to me. But I don't know.
Well, no, honestly, I agree with you. And if there's any season to do it, it's this one. Because if you look at the season 16 schedule, we only have 2 street courses. And that's Singapore and Las Vegas. And Singapore tends to be one of the more tame street courses. So the schedule, kind of fits with the narrative that ghosting should be off. And, you said it. Like, wreck avoidances are part of racing. And I think that skill has been lost in the last couple of seasons in TCR, just because if someone spins out in front of you, you can literally drive right through them as if they're not even there. Which, on the other side of things, it does keep the racing better. It keeps more people involved in the race. It keeps things cleaner, but that's not realistic. I think we have to acknowledge that luck is just as much of a part of racing, to where you can have a really fast car and get wiped out because there's a crash in front of you and you can't slow down. It happens in NASCAR. It happens in F1. So I'm more towards you, Seafreeze, where I think we should have ghosting off. For all those reasons, but more for, the schedule kind of fits that, to where we don't have many street courses.
What about from a couple platinum drivers? What do you guys think?
Me personally, we could probably take it on a case-by-case basis, but for the most part, I love the mentality where you have to hold yourself accountable in every single race and the moves that you make, and if you didn't save it, then you didn't save it. That's on you. Don't just wait for ghosting to bail you out, because I've had races where I'll avoid something and ghosting happens immediately after I've gone through the car. And some people, the guys behind you, might have gotten bailed out by ghosting, but I didn't. I would have been screwed. So, I'm kind of more of the mentality where, avoid it or just deal with it. This is racing.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat.
Really?
I'm kind of in the same boat with Silent. I think it probably, because you're saying it should be on, right, Silent? Is that what I got from that? Or...
He's indifferent.
I don't care whether it's on or off. Yeah, I'm indifferent. I race leagues that it's on, and see, okay, I think it just comes from the fact that I default to I have to avoid the car.
Yeah.
I'm not even taking a chance of plowing into it. I'm avoiding it, and I'm not waiting for ghosting to bail me out. I've had multiple races where ghosting has been on, but I avoided the car myself. So I think it's just my default mentality that I don't need it to be on to do what I'm instinctually doing.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm more on the side. I think it should be off. So basically, it's like kind of what Silent said. It's racing. You have to basically keep your head on a swivel and everything. And if an incident happens in front of you, you have to react with it. That's what racing is. It's reaction time. So if you don't have the reaction time, or you make one wrong move, which in racing you have to be near perfect if you want to do well, I think it should be off.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. Because I think when you have it on, and because my instinct, if it's on, I'm avoiding the car as well. I'm never relying on the game for anything. Like, the game and me, we're divorced, right? We're completely divorced, and the F1 game is an ex of mine, and I don't want to rely on anything from the game. I could do it on my own. I don't need any of that. I'm not paying no child support either. But I'll avoid the incident. But I know people behind me won't, and they'll go right through the car. So if I have to slam the brakes or turn offline, go through the grass or go through whatever to avoid the incident, and then the next 3 cars behind me do rely on the game because they love it and they're married to it, and they go right through them, then they're gaining time. So I think if it's off, it's fair for everybody. You know, you have to avoid the car if they spin in front of you or any incident. Now, the game does ghost sometimes. If they block the pit lane, it's ghosting on. If it's a grieving moment when someone's intentionally take somebody out or some other events, it does ghost. But most times, for most incidents, you would have to avoid it. So, like I said, I don't really care what we do in the league. Even if I was racing, I don't mind if it was on or off. I just prefer it off. I'm okay with whatever we decide. But like I said, personally, I like it off while racing, because if you have the leaders pitting, right, and they, you know, pit and then they get bumped into traffic and somebody spins and they get taken, or they go for a move because they're trying to get past them too quickly and ghosting bails them out in a situation, whereas if ghosting wasn't, if it was off, they could have been gotten damaged, they could have DNF'd, and that would change the outcome of who would win the race or even a championship, because ghosting off is a higher probability you will have wrecks, you will have safety cars, and you have to be perfect, like D'Angelo was saying. You have to be perfect throughout the everything, and that just adds another element into the race. So I don't know. I think, you know what, I know you guys love saying, I hear you guys in Discord, oh, we should do more polls. We should do more polls. We should get votes in TCR. You know what? We should do a vote. I'm actually interested, just to see. I mean, just to see where people are at. I think regardless, every street course should be on. I think that's fair. I think we can probably agree on that. Personally, still, I would have it off, but I don't know. Maybe we vote on that too.
Well, I mean, based on the amount of chatter in the league-wide chat, I think we need a poll for just about anything.
And as FND said, is this when we curse each other out? And
I love that comment.
Or is it too soon? Do I wait?
Nah, now.
Oh man. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think I would like to do a vote just to see where everybody's at on that, because I thought at least one of you guys would have liked it on, but yeah, we could do a vote on it. We'll see if anybody decides to. I think ghosting will be on this week because that's what it was supposed to be coming into the season, and then we'll put a vote out and maybe we'll see. We'll ask if it should be on or off throughout the season and on or off at a street courses, and we'll list the street courses or the tracks that would be, and just to kind of get a sense of where the league is at and what they would want. My biggest thing is I wouldn't want to have it off. People get into wrecks that they get really frustrated at for practicing so much, and then they leave the league. That's what I don't want, and I think that's why I'm okay with having it on. But personally, I know if I wreck or get taken out, it's frustrating. But that's racing. I move on. I'm not gonna hold a grudge on it, so to speak. But that's really a big reason why I think we have had it on, to make it cleaner, to make sure people don't get too frustrated. But I think we could do a poll. It's a good idea.
I think we should.
Yeah,
Yep,
we'll get that. We'll get that going. We should do a poll for all of them too, just to kind of see. And another idea was the sim damage event. I think Bats or somebody else said something about sim damage, and I forget who it was, but I I think we should do a sim damage event and see how it goes. Then my piggyback idea was to have, if it goes well, the event, have one track next season to trial it out on an official race, to say this will be sim damage, you know, like kind of how we do different events like the 3-tire special and all these other different lobby settings. We can have a sim damage race, demolition derby style. Hopefully not. Hopefully.
Oh Jesus!
It could be the 100% race that we have, you know, or the GP. But I would say the 100%.
Oh, you want to combine it?
No, either one.
Huh? Like have it separate as its own 50% sim damage, or also combine it?
No, like the whole. Okay, so you take the GP, I guess layout or whatever, and the whole thing is now sim damage. Like you make it a part of the GP thing.
Oh,
or like the 100%.
Oh, I see.
That would be interesting.
Ah, so you're saying
so
that would change. That would make the event, I think, a little bit more, you know, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever sound effect that was. That's like a Minecraft villager when they. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That would be really cool. I really like that idea. Put it for the GP. Now in the 5-lappers too, you think?
Yes. No, it has to be because, you know, like, I mean, weren't you saying, like, the GP is about trying to stay clean throughout the entire way? Well, I mean, sim damage would be one of those aspects you have to take into consideration. You can't just launch it on anybody just because you'll get bailed out.
Right. That's a good idea. I kind of do like that idea. Now, should ghosting be off on that one, too? I guess it would be, right? I guess it would be.
Yeah.
It should be off.
It would be off sim damage, TCR Grand Prix, right? That'd be badass, to be honest with you. That'd be.
It's
really
at
cool.
Monza too. Oh
Ooh,
boy.
that makes it even better.
Yeah, well, the GP is usually at tracks where the lap time's pretty short and really good for racing. Like, you know, we've had it at besides the first year, which was at Monaco, which we would never return to that, I don't think, and definitely not with sim damage and ghosting. We would.
Everybody would DNF.
I don't think anybody would show. But we had Austria for 2, we had Brazil for 2, we had Bahrain for 2, now we have Italy for 2, or Monza for 2. So, you know, those are good tracks to have those types of things on. Obviously, we don't know which ones in the future we would go to, but, you know, the TCR Grand Prix always had that qualifying format, and the Parc Fermé was always off, so you could change setups, and it would be a really cool idea. You had extra points on the line, but I like the idea because it is a long night. If you guys ever do a Platinum Class TCR Grand Prix format, which is on the website, if you aren't aware of it, you can go to the website. It has the format there, but basically it's Q1, Q2, Q3 with one-shot 5-lap races to set you up, and you get eliminated throughout, just like in real qualifying. And you set up for that 50% race, but the 50% race, nothing's different about that 50% race. It's just a 50% race. So if you had sim damage and ghosting off, it'd be like, wow, if you survived the night of the TCR Grand Prix and you get the win, which, Silent, you have a TCR Grand Prix win, I think that'd be like an extra stipulation of what makes that GP more significant and unique. I like it.
Yeah, it sort of turns it into even more of a challenge and making sure you just endure the whole thing.
Yeah, I like it. No, we're making ideas.
We're cooking.
We're cooking. Yeah, I think. Yeah, we did that. I felt like I was gonna say something on the sim damage event, but regardless, any other, I think we got everything on that one. Yeah,
I think so.
We'll put it in the poll. I think we're gonna do polls this week. Some polls. We'll put some polls out. Alright, so we'll move on to the Golden Class and the news of the hour. Your championship leader and the person who got both wins and both poles by a good margin at that, has been promoted to the Platinum class. KD1997, after winning the first 2 rounds, will be moved up to Platinum. He'll be full-time in the Williams, replacing Andy Pooh. And, yeah. Now, just a little preface for this. We haven't moved up a Golden driver to Platinum in quite some time. We used to do that a lot back in the day, which I wasn't really a fan of. It was just the situation, right? It's like we try to place drivers, and we have the right to move drivers where we want to move them because we're trying to balance our grids. So we get to place drivers where we want to place them. If they want to race there, if their schedule allows it, that's up to them. So coming into a new game, we only had time trial. That was our only stipulation, and it's harder to place newer drivers, but you know, sometimes we do misplace some drivers. So, you know, KD had some really good opening 2 rounds. He got the pole by I think 2 to 3 tenths at Qatar and a half a second at Bahrain, and both of those laps would put him P4 on Platinum grid. And not only that, but his race was really good. I mean, he won by 13, what was it, 13 seconds at Qatar, and 15, oh, excuse me. And another, I think he won by a second and a half or so at Bahrain, but there was a safety car late, I believe. But even still, KD was able to extend outside of the DRS gap so easily. He was pretty much unchallenged. And the more reason why we did move him up is obviously his times were good and his racing was good, and he's competitive in Platinum. He would 100% be pretty competitive there. The gap from him to the next driver in both races, in qualifying and the race, hasn't been really that close. If you remove KD, the rest of the grid looks like they should kind of be there, and there should be enough drivers to compete with each other. There shouldn't be really any outliers where one will take away from it. But with the qualifyings, if you look back at the qualifyings, P2 in both races would be around P10. So if you on a Platinum grid, so if KD's up by P4 and the other guy in second is starting around P9, P10, there's a couple tenths in there. I mean, we know how close the qualifying in Platinum is. A guy in P4 is easily almost beating the guy in P10. There's a couple tenths there in the race and in qualifying, and that's just where P2 starts. Then you got the rest of the Golden class grid, which is farther down if you compare it to the Platinum class grid. So I know it's a small sample size, 2 rounds, but we felt like we saw enough to move him up, and KD was able to make accommodations, and he's able to have a full-time seat in the Platinum class. So it did work out in the end. I feel bad. He was really helpful in working with us and understanding that we were trying to move him up to Platinum. And I think it's the right call for all the Golden drivers. It's the right call for the Platinum drivers, because while we could wait a few more races to see if, can he make it 3, 4, 5 in a row, if he continues to win, it's not really fair to then move him up, and it's also really not fair to keep him there. So the only fact, if you keep KD in Golden, is like you're betting on him to lose, to make it an interesting season and make it fair. So I don't think it was really worth keeping him there, because we don't want him to continue winning and then move him up, and then the championship was wide open, and we don't want to keep him there and then he just dominates the season when he really should be in Platinum. So we messed up, we misplaced him. He should have been in Platinum to start the season. As a new driver, it's hard to get some in a new game. It's hard to place some drivers, but ultimately he's in Platinum now, and I think he'll do really well. We'll see how it goes with him in Platinum, but I'm excited to see him there. And we've had instances in the past where we've had those scenarios play out, where we have had drivers dominate a season and we didn't want to move them up. And then we've had it the other way, where we had drivers who won a lot and then we did move them up mid-season. And it just plays with the championship a little too much. So I think with 2 rounds in, I think we saw enough. I know I did. The officials and moderators voted, and I think there was enough evidence on track as well to support the move. So I think it was an appropriate decision. So we'll see how he goes on Platinum later this week. But I think the rest of the Golden class drivers are now breathing.
Quick question: do we have a limit to when we can move people up a class? So say like after round 4 we can't move anybody up. Is there something in the rule books that says that?
No, but we should kind of think about that. I think that's a good idea.
I agree.
Yeah, because I think it would be fair to to do that. I mean, to have a little bit more select rules and how we kind of organize the grids. I think there are some. There's always going to be a rule that isn't going to be applied 100% correctly. Like there's going to be sometimes it doesn't apply correctly, but I could think of some rules of how we do things. Like for example, silver class drivers can only reserve in golden. Golden drivers can only reserve in platinum. They can only reserve 1 class up. I don't know if that's in the rule book, but it's in our rules. Technically, it's unwritten rule basically of how we have the policy in TCR. Also, like, and this isn't in the rules technically, but it's more of a policy. If you win the golden class championship, you are required to move up
automatically.
So that's not in the rule book. It should be in the rule book. So we'll have to add a section of roster placements or something like that, and promotions. Yeah, and also like there was an example of usually if you finish top 10 in the class, you're solidified in that class, and you shouldn't be. Now there is an outlier here, but it's kind of different in some regard. Where if you're in the top 10 of a certain class, you can't get demoted, and you don't have to really trial out for the class. Like if you're top 10 in platinum, you're top 10 in platinum. You can't, if you finish the season top 10, the next season you don't have to do evaluations, and you're not getting demoted either. Although we did have a driver this season, Raikkonen, he did get demoted to golden, but I think he's running no racing line now, and it was a different scenario as well. But maybe we fine-tune those rulings a little bit just to make sure we have kind of more things on paper. But yeah, that's a good idea. So we'll see how it goes. Golden will now have a tied-up championship. A little 3-way action. Whisper, Remsley, Raikkonen, all tied at 18 points.
And you do have to keep in mind, though, that KD is not going to get erased from the standings.
No.
He'll sit there with his 51 points, and he'll probably end up finishing like 8th or 9th in the standings, maybe at best. But I think that's another reason why it's good to take him out now. That way we don't remove him after 5 rounds, and he's accumulated 150 points.
Right.
Not just for himself, but also for the constructors.
Yeah, because his points from Williams stay at Williams.
Exactly.
So he will continue to keep those points for Williams. And we do have a rule as well, like if a driver comes into a class and there's a few open seats, what team does that driver go to? Well, they go to the team that is lowest in the Constructors' Championship. So, if they don't go to the highest running team, they go to the bottom. And if there's like an open team, they would first go to a team, the lowest team that doesn't have a teammate, And once all those are filled, then they would go to an open team if there's no teammates. But that's kind of how that would work, because we've had drivers join a class and they want to pick their car, and they pick a higher team, whereas someone who's lower in the standings, doesn't have a teammate to work with. So, all those things should kind of be technically in the rules. This way, we get a little bit more solidification going on. I also wanted to mention in the Golden class that we have two new drivers from last week, and one full-time, one reserve. Now, I don't know if the reserve will go to full-time now that KD is not racing. But I really like the new AlphaTauri driver's username.
Yes.
He's the hood version of Kool-Aid Man, so it's Hood Kool-Aid Man.
Oh my god.
So
Oh my god.
Great username. I think you have the best one in the TCR at the moment.
Do we have like a contest? We should do that. We should, along with all the other polls that we're doing, we should do a poll for best TCR username.
I mean, I would
can get
vote for
behind
him.
Me too, honestly.
Where did Kool-Aid Man, Hood Kool-Aid Man finish? Let's see.
I think he got 6th, I believe.
Let's see. Yeah, 6th.
Pretty good.
And the reserve, Mighty Wombat, finished 3rd. Now, I've heard that he's really quick. From, I think Sir Charles had said that, and some others. They said that Mighty Wombat is as quick as bthommm. Now, he's running with no racing line, and obviously he didn't win the race because he finished 3rd. But now with KD moving up, and he's a reserve, so we don't know how often he'll show. But if he's really that quick, I wonder how he'll influence the championship as a reserve in Golden. Because I don't think he's... If he turns the racing line on and he does have speed of bthommm, assumably. I've never seen him race, to be honest, so I don't know. Then, if he was going to turn the racing line on, he would be moved up to Platinum, if assumably he was bthomm's pace. But if he has the racing line off, and he had a performance in Golden, which was good last week, I feel like he's still learning the racing line off, and he should be able to race in Golden as a reserve for the season, and then, we'll see how it goes. But I think he could win some races, especially with KD moving up, and that opens a door for, a bunch of drivers now to win some races. I know GTR Line didn't have the best opening first 2 rounds. I think he could have competed with KD towards the front, but I think multiple drivers could. C. Rizzy, Segrist, J&B, they just had some off weeks at Bahrain, which kind of took them out of it. But I think now that KD's moved up in the proper class, I think you'll have a bunch of drivers looking for wins and podiums in Golden. And, the championship is close now, obviously 2 rounds in. We'll see how it goes, 4, 5, 6 halfway point, and what the championship is looking like. But yeah, Golden's usually really close, and now that we had this, yeah, it's going to be really close moving forward. Alright, and we'll move to the silver class. Let's see what happened.
A lot of things happened.
Yeah, we had a couple new drivers as well there. 15 drivers, which was supposed to be, I think, 17. I think 2 drivers weren't able to make it, even though they checked in. So I really wanted that 17. That would have been cool. But the attendance has been getting better in silver, so we're getting more drivers there, and we do have, I think, a seat now in golden now that KD moved up, and I think we still have a seat or so in silver. So if you're looking for, or know anyone looking for a seat, they could still sign up in the description. But yeah, Zionical won the race. I thought he had a good one. Toblerone got back onto the podium. F1 Nerd on the podium as well after a bad strategy call earlier on in the race, and then it kind of came back around and he was able to get it. Now there is, let's look at these penalties here. Did anybody's Toblerone didn't get anything? No. Bulldog didn't get anything. Pilot Pan Xenars, they didn't get any penalty, or they did. 15-second time penalty and 3 penalty points. And that goes to Pilot Pants, if I'm looking at, yeah, Pilot Pants. So he'll serve it back of the grid at Abu Dhabi. That's for contact with Xenars. Incident 2 is with Toblerone, locked up with Bulldog Bazaar. No racing, no action on that one. So Toblerone keeps the podium, and Whizbang collides with the rear of Easy 10 in turn 4. So that's 10 seconds and 2 penalty points to Whizbang. But they didn't need the footage, so alright, cool. So yeah, he'll get demoted there. So Whizbang was 12th anyway, so the time penalty doesn't matter. So anywho, Saad Niaz it was his first race. CH Machine was his first race. They both finished in the points 8th and 9th, respectively. And I think they might get, I think Saad will move up at least 1 position because Pilot has that penalty, 15 seconds. So he'll move up to 7th. I gotta do the points, but yeah, good race by them as well. It was nice to see a lot of drivers on track. I did mention earlier, Bulldog Bazaar did retire in the pits when he could have continued because they had the late race safety car, and he probably could have got some points because there was only 10 drivers left at the time. So he could have had at least 1 position. I thought Weird Checkin had a great race, and he had some great speed in the car. He only finished, I think, 10th. But I think that's promising from him because last season I didn't think he had that much speed in the car, to be honest. But I think he's improved a lot, especially on this new game. So that's cool to see that he's able to move up a little bit. So just those my little kind of thoughts there. But yeah, that'll be tomorrow, Silver Class at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Me and D'Angelo will be commentating it, and we're on round 3 of 15 for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Anything else, folks?
No, I got nothing, honestly.
Yeah, same. I got nothing.
Well, I mean, like you said, Abu Dhabi tomorrow. The last couple seasons in the silver class, we've had late race safety cars come out literally in like the last 6 laps of the race, and both seasons have had pretty good finishes. So just make sure to tune in tomorrow because Abu Dhabi tends to be a thriller.
This is true.
Yeah, you heard it there. Camden said tune in, so go do it. Also, keep liking the videos, everybody. We appreciate all the support. If the videos on the YouTube do well on our TCR's channel, it also helps you guys who are racing. So it's a win-win for everyone. Who wouldn't want more viewers and spectators and more attention and drivers submitting applications, to build to the TCR community. So please make sure you're tuning in to all the races, support your other classmen and the other classes, and if you can't show up live, tune back in when they get uploaded to YouTube. Hit the like button, share a comment, and let's see if we can really get the algorithm happy again on this new game. We're close to 600, so hopefully we'll get closer this week as we have 3 new streams and 3 races going. But other than that, that's going to do it for this episode. So make sure to follow TCR on all socials and join the TCR Discord server where we are the most active. Thank you to my company here today for joining me on the podcast. And until next time, thank you for listening.